basically said, let's not look at the COVID numbers. Let's look at pre-numbers, strip out the office supplies.
And you bought that argument?
Dude, we were ridiculously fortunate.
Whether you're looking to sell your business in the near future or just want to make it more scalable and profitable, Work Better Now's virtual assistants can help you get there. Adding a virtual assistant to your team can help you focus on high-value activities like business development and training. Work Better Now clients also use their assistants as project managers, marketing and operations coordinators, and customer service representatives. Work Better Now clients say that their virtual executive assistants have made an impact on their business well beyond their expectations. For only $1,900 a month, you get a full-time assistant who is 100% dedicated to your business. There are no contracts, no additional cost. Based in Latin America with incredible English proficiency and business experience, Work Better Now assistants undergo a rigorous screening and onboarding process. Work Better Now is currently offering Built to Sell listeners and readers $150 off per month for 3 months just by mentioning Built to Sell. To learn more, visit workbetternow.com. Welcome to another edition of Built to Sell Radio. This is the podcast designed to help you punch above your weight in a negotiation to sell your company. Today's episode is going to deliver on that measure. Before we go there, I wanted to share a little bit of a personal story. I think I'm the only person on the planet who still buys cable television. You know, like the cable package you get when they have like all those terrible sitcoms and they've got all those news shows and the movie chat and of course sports. And the only reason I've kept cable is sports. But I tell you, I am getting really close to cutting the cord because of course now we can start buying all that stuff independently. Of course, we can buy Netflix and Disney and all that stuff, but you can also now, as I'm starting to learn, buy these sports channels independently. And I don't need to be held hostage effectively to these cable providers to buy all these channels I'm never going to watch. Why am I telling you this? Because no one likes to buy something they're not going to use. And that includes acquirers. And so when they look at your company and they're evaluating your business to buy it, you want them to want the entire thing, not just one little sliver of what you do, but you want them to get excited about the entire thing. You're going to want to get paid for your entire business. Yet if they only value a portion of it, that's when you're going to have trouble. And that's actually the experience that my next guest, Calvin Johnson, found himself in. He built a great business. Lykki had two very different divisions. One was selling coffee into offices and the other was selling office supplies. Totally different gross margin, one different brands. I mean, it was a very different business model. And not surprisingly, when he went to sell it, as you'll hear in a moment, the acquirers were only interested in one side of the business or another. And all the effort that he'd put into that side of the business was being discounted by one acquirer or the other. Here to tell you the entire story and what he ultimately did to successfully exit both businesses is Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson, welcome to Built to Sell Radio.
Hey, how's it going, John?
I'm good. I got to let our listeners in on the laugh we just had, because one of the things that I usually do at the beginning of a podcast or before we hit record, I'm like, hey, do you have a hard stop at the top of the hour? Do we have to know? And your response was?
Yeah, are you kidding? It's the most exciting thing of my day. So
I just sold my company. Of course I don't have a hard stop. It's beautiful.
Exactly.
I'm so happy for you because this was a long road. Tell us a little bit about when it started. How did you get into Lykki?
Yeah. I started this company in 1989.
Wow.
So other than, one little job I had at an exercise company, I actually had another company when I was 19. I got involved in, and we grew 3 retail stores of fitness equipment.
Oh,
and
cool.
I just happened to stumble into it and exited and sold that. So it was just dumb luck the whole way through. But I learned so much about it. I thought I could do this. I could start my own business. and so started Lykki that evolved over time. This was pre-internet, and originally the company was the home delivery service for Costco wholesale. But we grew and changed and evolved over time, and so 30 something years later, here we are, right? So
and so when did so for people listening who aren't familiar with Lykki, you had effectively two different lines of business. So you want to describe those?
Yeah, really, in the last 10 years, we really came into our own. And so, we're an e-commerce company that, so imagine a typical business in a downtown office tower, say a law firm of a couple hundred people, and they've got the coffee guy, the water guy, the toner guy, the paper guy. So what Lykki did, we delivered all that in one delivery. So really, if you had to break the company into two main categories, it was office supplies, typical office supplies. And even in there, we had a print shop and did printing and furniture and things. And then on the other side would be kind of all that kitchen stuff, office coffee, water coolers, snacks, fruit, milk. Shockingly, most businesses spend more on the food and beverage side than they do on the office supply side. And the office supply side, the receptionist will nickel and dime you for a Post-it note, but they're willing to pay like crazy money for coffee. So margins on that side were. So as we evolved, we continued to grow out our office coffee division, which is a very complicated business to get into, very capital intensive, lots of equipment, $15,000 coffee machines or robot machines and stuff. So basically, we were kind of unique in the marketplace, and that we did both on one truck. Order by 4, delivery next day, of over 50,000 SKUs.
That's interesting. So you were kind of a mashup, because when I think of office supplies, I think of Staples for some reason. I don't know why, but I go to Staples, order my whatever Post-it notes, and then on the coffee front, I've always kind of been curious about that, because I do see office towers having coffee. Usually my impression in the early days was the coffee was so bad, right? Like I think of it as like the old skating rink coffee, where you get the vending machine and like you get the kind of brown water that is like instant coffee. But then it totally it got really high end out of very fancy machines after a while, like, and good coffee eventually.
Yeah, one of my passions is corporate culture, and a lot of businesses seem to think that offering great coffee and fruit creates culture. It's not really true. There's a lot of other things going to it. But there's a big evolution over the last 10 years where businesses really spent a lot of time, free breakfast, free lunches, great coffee, of course, and used it as a recruiting tool. That side of the business really, really grew.
That's cool. Which came first, the office supplies, then the coffee, or starting with the coffee and you added office?
Office supplies first. Office supplies first. And if you go to like Staples and you go on their website, you'll see a bag of candy or maybe some, K-cups or something. But usually a business would have several vendors. Sometimes you'd have to have a vendor for fruit, vendor for milk, vendor for coffee. So we did it all. We had big warehouse and fleets trucks and tons of inventory. It was super complex. We ran 24 hours a day. It was a super complex business.
And it's very different. I mean, the office supplies, to your point, it's very commoditized. It's very much, they're giant competitors, right? And you're effectively in a dogfight with them every day.
Yeah, box of copy paper. Talk about commodity of commodities, right? I mean, it is what it is. And 50-pound box delivered upstairs, and oh my God, it was the worst. And then we roasted our own coffee. We created our own brand of coffee, and you can make 300% margin on coffee. So it was funny seeing, delivering both these things, but we were kind of waning away from the office supplies. There's just so much competition, and margin was raced to the bottom.
Yeah. What would your gross margin be on a typical office supplies order?
Well, office supplies in the industry, and for us, just an office supply order would be in the high 20s. And then our food side could be as much as 100. So as a blended average for us, we were in the 40s.
Got it. But on the food side, it was way higher.
Yeah, especially. Yeah.
Why keep the office supplies business? Did you ever contemplate just shutting it down and focusing exclusively on coffee?
Yeah, I'll get more into that story. When we came to sell, I didn't realize what a big negative it was. But at the time, no, because we really went to market as a single source supplier. So we really leveraged that. Hey, why do you want 3 different suppliers? There was some cool studies we would share with our customers about the cost of procurement. And this is great for all your listeners. It's not, every one of your listeners should go and look what the receptionist is doing with the credit card. And they're going to potentially, this is my experience. They're shopping around on Amazon and they're finding the cheapest price on Post-it notes, and then they're going over here and getting milk over there and stuff. The average cost of a purchase order is $75, because it's not just the receptionist.
The time of that person.
Forget about, so when I'm talking with owners, I've done this conversation thousands of times. I said, so forget about the receptionist. I said, wait till that PO or whatever reconciliation makes its way into the back office, into your finance department, and they're having to reconcile every line on, a credit card statement, every invoice that comes in, they have to log into the GL. That's where your $75 comes from. And immediately, these guys are running out there and they're like, stop doing what you're doing. Just order from one place, even if it's more expensive. And of course, our claim to fame was, not only are you going to save on the procurement cost, but then because your average order size for us was hundreds and hundreds of dollars. In the industry, it was $45. Staples' average order size, $45. Ours was $250. So logistically for us, picking, packing, delivering an order, we can be way more profitable that way too.
Interesting. This one-stop shop value proposition was in years ago, before Amazon and before all of these, staples.com and so forth. The idea of a one-stop shop was a very compelling value proposition because of all the things you're saying. With such an influx of e-commerce, people ordering everything, did you see that diminish over time, or how did that one-stop shop message evolve in its poignancy for your customers over time?
Yeah, say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was really compelling and became more and more difficult. One of the reasons why we decided to exit, the competition was just fierce. As an example, a large grocery chain in our area, big stores, and they decided to start doing deliveries. This turned out to be one of the people that came in and actually wrote an LOI. So they started doing home delivery grocery. Of course, during the pandemic, now that's like exploded in like crazy. But out of the home delivery for this big grocery chain, they started picking up office customers, because they treated their pricing model the same way they did in the stores. So back of the store is what? The cheap milk. And you got to walk your way past the chips and all the high margin stuff. So they priced it on their website that way. And when they came and talked to us during this LOI, and they said, we have this business division we don't know what to do with. We don't make any money on this, because they had I think a $20 fee or $20 minimum order. So they said, we have these offices that are ordering like 1 case of water, and we're delivering it to a downtown office tower. And of course, you know how hard it is to park downtown, right? Sure. And so they're like, this business model is not working for us on the B2B side. Maybe we need to look at you guys and acquire you or something. So yeah, there was business models popping up all over the place that made no sense, that we just couldn't compete with.
Okay. So, but that's helpful for sure for me to kind of set the stage for your ultimate sale. So you're building this business all the way back to 89, but over years, you build it up. Yeah. And you've got these 2 divisions, gross margin being a lot better on the kitchen stuff than the office stuff. Roughly from a revenue perspective, not a contribution, but a revenue perspective, what was the relative size of each of the business units?
Yeah, about 25, 30% on the office supplies. Okay. At one time it was 100%, right? But it slowly ate away at that. Now, just to add some color, the office supply side, we could offer 30,000 SKUs, and almost all of it was just-in-time inventory.
So you're not stocking
so
or warehousing that stuff. You're buying it and reselling it effectively.
So our warehouse was full of the grocery side. So, just-in-time inventory is very cost effective. Basically, you sell it before you buy it, and then the wholesaler would be delivering overnight.
So the kitchen stuff was sucking up more cash flow.
Huge, and then the capital investment in the coffee equipment too, and then the repairs and maintenance and parts and things. So two totally different models. It sounds sexy at first on the coffee side, but there's a lot more intensity to it, right? And perishable, how much stuff, you really got to watch. You have great buyers to make sure you're not throwing stuff in the garbage or giving to the food bank.
Yeah, this is a really interesting challenge because you're right. The office supplies is cash flow positive. There's no inventory. It's
margins
clean,
are low, right?
But lower margins.
Low barrier to entry. There was always guys trying to do it out of their bedroom in one truck, right? So
you mentioned you started to actually roast your own coffee. Did you have your own brand that you were offering? What was that?
Yeah. So we did our own brand, and you can make big more. We could roast a pound of coffee packaged and everything out the door for about $3.50 a pound, and you're selling it for $18 a pound.
So you're forexing on that. So what's the name of the brand?
It was called 𝙎𝙊𝙇𝙊𝙐𝙇 So it was an in-house brand, and but anybody that wants to get into roasting coffee, there's already third-party roasters. You just find one in your area and go up to them, and they'll white label it for you. You can do your own cuppings and figure out your brands and slap a sticker on it, and you're off to the races. And some people use them for charity. Other people just get a kick out of doing it, right? So
that's cool.
It was really cool. I might do that in the future again, just to have another little coffee brand and use it as part of a charity thing.
Yeah, neat. So you've got, by the time you went to exit, 70% of your revenues on the kitchen side, 30% on the office supplies. Got it. What triggered, and how big a company was it at that time when you first started thinking about selling, like in terms of number of employees?
So 7-8 million in there, 35, 40 employees at our height. We never broke 10 million.
Was that a goal?
Yeah, that was definitely.
What was it about 10 that was meaningful for you?
Well, 21 is my favorite number. So 21 was actually my goal to really look at starting to sell.
So what changed?
Well, for me on my 50th birthday, so like I said before, I have this kind of passion for corporate culture and also personal happiness and just the science of happiness. So on my 50th birthday, I took a month and I went and studied under a guy that was kind of a guru in the workplace happiness space in Denmark. So I hung out with him for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I went to Bhutan, actually with an my EO group. Then we went to Bhutan.
EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization.
Entrepreneurs Organization. And you're 50 now and stuff. And my wife worked in the business too. For probably the last 15 years, and she didn't like it. She didn't like the employees. She didn't not like the employees. She doesn't like the stress of running a business and the drama of employees, and you're always having to put on a smiley face, and it just wasn't her. We're entrepreneurs, right? So we're gluttons for punishment more than dragging your wife in. But she did the purchasing. So anyways, I just looked when I was 50. I'm like, I don't know, it's time for another chapter. And this was pre-COVID, right? So we were rocking and rolling, things were doing good. And I thought, let's at least start looking into what this will look like. Sole shareholder, didn't have anybody to answer to, didn't really need any more money. How much more money do you really need at the end of the day? So started looking at, maybe it's time to move on and focus on some other passions.
Mm-hmm. So it was the 50th birthday that triggered this sort of
my happiness trip.
Yeah. Calvin, this is not the nature of our podcast, but I'd be remiss not to ask you, what drives happiness in a work context? What have you learned?
Oh, in work, it's really about, back to your mission, vision, values, like purpose. If people coming to work just for a paycheck or, they don't have a reason why they want to get up in the morning, all the way from the top down, that's usually the root of unhappiness. I mean, you can get.
How did you guys do it? Because like I get it when you're, like if you're Elon Musk, you're talking vision and you're like, we're going to transform the world to, alternative energy. Like I get how you can be like a big vision guy or gal in that context when you've got a company that's literally changing the world. You guys are selling like thumbtacks and sticky notes and coffee. Like how on earth did you convince people to get excited about your vision when you what you're selling?
Well, we had two things. So I mean, one, our big sign on the wall was to create healthier, happier, more productive workplaces. By our single source, by giving them great product, coffee and all that kind of stuff, and teaching our customers how to then translate that to their staff on one side. And the second, we started a charity that for every $1 that a customer bought, we would donate a liter of safe, clean drinking water. And for every piece of fruit that we sold thousands of pieces of fruit a month. For every piece of fruit we sold, we would donate a piece of fruit to a food program. Both of these were in Nicaragua, in an area around an open pit garbage dump, severe poverty. And so between the two of those, we talked a lot about our charity internally and with our customers, and that gave us purpose. So back to answering your question, I think if people are working in an organization and they don't understand the purpose of the business beyond just making money, and that shouldn't be the reason, then usually there's deep-rooted unhappiness at certain levels. And then of course being able to measure that. So we had some great tools that we tried to be able to keep the pulse. We pulsed our staff every week. We use something called Heart Count. If you go to Heart Count, I probably tried 20 of them, and Heart Count, it's out of Belarus. It's free, I think, for the first 20 people even. So, and it was fantastic, all based in science, the questions. So great pulse to do every week. And it's a great suggestion if any of your listeners take anything away.
Cool.
Go run Heart Count every week.
That's a great suggestion. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Let's go back to the original question. So you have this milestone birthday, you're 50. What did you do next?
So I realized I needed to understand what it is to actually sell a business. I don't know. I never really thought about the day of like selling. You just get into the grind and you just start going through it. And it's a value somewhere. And, I've borrowed against my house, and I've been close to, bankruptcy the other time, highs and lows of every typical entrepreneur. Bank calls your loan. And
Did
so
that actually happened to you?
Yeah. Maybe about 20 years ago. Yeah. We had the bank call our loan, our line of credit. And so, you have good years, bad years, and everything. We had to go find another bank and was able to take money out of our house to prop it up, to make it through some, challenging times.
Okay, so you'd kind of contemplated this idea of selling, but never on your front foot, never proactively. So what next? You have this birthday. What did you do?
Especially back to the entrepreneurs organization, being in that sense, so just started, schooling myself on what it takes to, sell a business. So that was in 2018.
What were the best resources for schooling yourself? Like, were there online courses that you took, or your EO forum mates? Like, what did you find the most?
Yeah, EO people. I mean, just anybody in your network. You're not going to be part of EO, but anybody in your network. And then, usually in business, somebody knows somebody that knows somebody. So
in your case,
start asking like, yeah, hey, who sold a business? What was your experience, and who did you talk to? And then it didn't take long before people said, oh, you're going to need to talk to this guy, or you need that lawyer. And so what came out of that conversation was, we were, 6, 7, 8 million in sales. And they said, hey, if you want to get maximum value, if you can sell something that has a valuation like 10 to 20 million, like closer to 20 million, you're going to get way better. You're going to get private equity involved, and people are going to come in and scoop you up. So, okay. So why don't you go out and roll up some smaller players? $2 million, $3 million players, roll them in. We had a big distribution center, great ERP. We're a super advanced, great e-commerce site. We're 100% online. Thought, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's go do that. I don't know how to buy a business, but can't be that hard. So, you know how hard it is to buy a business. So I go to all my competitors, especially on the coffee side, and be little guys, you know, they've been around for a long time. Maybe they're going to age out. I thought, oh, this is a slam dunk. And I just approach them. Hey, you know, you're thinking about selling, and they're like, oh, Lykki, you know, and we had a good reputation. You know, we weren't, you know, we didn't have any bad negative stuff. So we thought, hey, you know, come roll in with us, and you know, maybe you could either let us buy you. Went to the Business Development Bank of Canada and was able to, you know, figure out how to borrow money, or they could just take some share, whatever. No. Couldn't get anybody. And as I learned,
what were you offering, Calvin, in terms of?
Well, we didn't even get that far. People were just, I'm not ready to sell. I said, well, everybody's ready to sell at some price, and they're like, nah, you know, I think I'll stick it out. Unfortunately, the office coffee business, even a small player, sometimes I think a small player might be even more profitable. So I'd say a $2 million guy with a couple of employees could be pulling in $500,000. And so he's like, I'm good. It's like, no, you know, come with me. So.
Yeah, and let's provide folks some context, because obviously COVID would have sent an office products company for a tailspin. So I want to just orient people in terms of the timeline. What time? Pre-COVID. This is pre-COVID, 2019, 18, 19, something?
Yeah, so that was 2018. And so researching how to sell, started approaching people, doing a roll-up, realized that it wasn't that easy. We needed people in our local market too. We weren't, you know, we're not national or anything. So it took about a month for us to realize this strategy isn't going to work. So you know, went out and started to build a team that you can kind of get into if you want, that you know, we needed to sell, including an M&A company.
So you'd originally been told, if you can get this thing to 20 million in value.
Yeah, 10 to 20 million is like you're going to open it up to national players, private equity people. Okay. Nobody wants to do a deal for a couple $1 million.
Got it. So that's what you're being told. So you try the acquisition, that didn't work. Did you, like, I just want to, so at this point, you're, as you said, around 7-8 million, something like that. So you're just shy of that threshold. Did you think about just continuing to grow to get there independently, or it sounds like you kind of threw your hands?
So some great advice I got right away is, so if you're marching down the road to selling, and your sales take a dip or anything like that, that's like death. So nothing is better for negotiation, or even to renegotiate, is you know, a nice hockey stick curve. So you're just growing like crazy. So time and time again, as everybody said, are you ready to, you know, tidy things up and just go balls to the wall? Because every dollar of sales is going to equal times your multiple, whatever you're going to get on, you know. So just go lean and mean and go crazy on sales. So that's what we started to do too, to make sure that we were going to try and grow. But taking it from 7 or 8 to 15 in 2 years in our industry, you know, unless I was going to sink a ton into the business, it wasn't going to happen overnight. So we did, but it started to have some good effects. But there's no way we were going to, you know, add another 30% of sales in a year.
Got it. So you're deploying two strategies, sounds like, simultaneously. One is to continue to do as best you can to grow the top line of the business. Yes. And at the same time, you're hiring an M&A team.
Yeah, like a team building the team, which you know, M&A. What turned out to be great advice, and it was true, was more important. The most important person that at least I found in our deal was an M&A lawyer. Mm-hmm. A great M&A lawyer. This is your negotiator. I didn't really understand the role of the M&A. Somebody explained it to me. They said, M&A guys are kind of like your realtor, right? They're just going to kind of sell the house. They're going to go out and market it and find the right people. But once you get down to the brass tacks, they're not negotiating the deal. Usually it's going to come down to a great M&A lawyer. So finding an M&A lawyer, finding an M&A accountant, or making sure that, you know, a lot of times you don't have that in your current accounting firm.
So this is, again, all things you're hearing from your forum mates. Hey, you got to have an M&A lawyer. You got to have an accountant that's done deals.
Yes.
Got it. So you found this team. What sources did you use I mean, I'm assuming these are all personal referrals you got to the team.
Pretty well. Yeah. You just kind of floated out to your industry, to your group, and somebody knows somebody that knows somebody. Right. So, especially, I can't stress enough the entrepreneurs organization, right? And within there's many people that obviously have sold businesses, bought businesses. Sure. So it's just getting introduced to the right people, and then starting to build a little bit of a team around you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happens next? Did you get offers, or
so with the M&A company, then, we built out our SIM, our
confidential information.
Yeah, confidential.
Right? Yeah.
And that was good. The best advice I ever got from the M&A lawyer that came back to really pay dividends later was build out your data vault. And that took a ton of time to do. Everything from collecting your leases and all your contracts, like, all that stuff that goes into it. It takes a ton of time, but that pays dividends in due diligence later because you have it all right at your fingertips. Mm-hmm. So we built out our SIM, and then went to market, and had the M&A company did great. Yeah.
And did they give you a sense of what they thought you might get for?
Yeah, actually probably better than, so they bought into the idea that, although our company was kind of two houses under one roof, that they thought that, let's market this to an office supply company that wants to get into food and beverage. Let's market this to a food and beverage company that wants to just tack on office supplies that they're looking to, and we did feel there was some indication of that happening. Mm-hmm. And so, valuation wise, it was, fair. I was pretty happy with it. It was, say again, 0.75 times top line as an example. Mm-hmm.
That's what they were sort of saying you should be able to do.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's kind of in where we kind of thought. But their strategy was, do a share sale. Obviously, it's cleaner, and you get dividends, and it's usually cleaner for a seller to do a share sale. So we did get lots of offers, not lots. I'd say 4 or 5, and that was pretty exciting. But kind of to jump forward, long story short, that none of them really worked out, because in the end, they all these LOIs kind of said, well, but we like this side of your business, but we don't really want that side. So we're just going to devalue it, or we don't want it, and maybe we'll do an asset sale and just take your customers or something like that. They didn't want the whole package. So we decided, because we were doing such great work inside the company, really leaning things out and bringing in some good people, and our sales were doing good, and it was 2019. We decided to kind of double down and kind of pull it off the table, and kind of double down on the office coffee side,
the kitchen side of the business.
Yeah. And grow that maybe to like 80, 85%. Like, I'm not going to throw the baby out of the bathwater on the office supplies, but we decided to kind of, just let it run its course. We're not going to.
I want to pause you there, because I think this is such a huge lesson, because of course, so many entrepreneurs, we focus on revenue because that's how we're measured, right? Like, you got a top line revenue is sort of how we boast about one another's success. And so you've got these 2 revenue streams going on, which, improves your gross revenue, or allows you to merchandise gross revenue. But when you showed that to acquirers, their reaction was, we either like the office supplies or we like the coffee side of the business, but we don't like both.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. And so did you entertain any of those offers? Did you say, well, like, did some like office, others like kitchen? And
yeah, I mean, we challenged them on it, saying, no, you're missing, here's the vision, right? And you're trying to explain this. Most of them were significant significant, buyers. But all of them, we felt, had one thing in common, which they were trying to enter B2B delivery or something like that. We thought we would be a nice, tidy little, I mean, some of them were so big, we said, look, this is like pocket change, like buy us and then use us as this, little test bed to see if this thing even works, right? Also, we were looking at potentially other larger buyers that maybe weren't strong in our territory. They were very strong in another territory, and they were maybe moving into our territory. And we knew that was coming too with competition. So we thought, hey, we're turnkey, ready to go. 18,000 square foot distribution. We got it all. You plug and play, and you can move into our area. But again, they looked at it and, well, especially Office Supply didn't want it because that's not the way that model works. So we decided to pull it off the table and kind of think, okay, well, we'll go back to market in a couple of years and joke's on you, right? Now it's worth more. You're going to have to pay more. And also possibly one of these roll-ups might come to fruition, who knows, right? And let's get it over 10 million. And, we had one party that literally said, like, if you guys are over 10 million on the coffee side, we would snap you up in a second. And it's like, okay, challenge accepted. So that was late 2019. And then right into 2020, we landed like a nice, a group of like 50 banks. And so remember, COVID is like 2 months away, right? Yeah, so this is like January, and we get this contract for these like 50 banks, and they all want coffee equipment. So we take out like a $350,000 term loan and buy equipment to place in all these banks.
Oh my gosh!
And
did you have a firm order from the banks, or did they have the wiggle room to get out of it?
I mean, how the office coffee industry works is you give them the equipment for free, and then you make it back on the poundage of coffee, so to speak, right? So you're just running coffee. So the agreement was, you have to use our equipment for like the next 3 years. Sure, in there it says you need to use X number of pounds of coffee per week or per month. But, once COVID hit, they're like, you're happy to leave your equipment here if you want, but the banks are closed. So,
oh my gosh.
So
all right, yeah. I want to get into COVID. I'd just be curious to know what was your wife's reaction to your decision to pull it off the market?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I haven't really thought about that too much. So, first, somebody gave me some great advice too, that don't underestimate the impact to your family, your friends, your spouse. Sometimes you think, okay, work is over here. Hey, I'm going to sell this or something. Like it's a lot of planning, especially if you're going to retire, right? What are you going to do with the money or something like that? So of course she was ecstatic to get out. But she understood, the strategy, right? All the way through. So although she was disappointed, it wasn't, because every time we would get an LOI and I'd kind of show her and she'd be like, take it, so I go, whoa, it's not that easy. It's only an LOI. It's like, we're not married yet.
Yeah. And LOI, of course, stands for letter of intent for folks who maybe new to that acronym. So, you're late 2019, you get this huge order from this bank group, 50 machines, 3-year contracts. Take us forward from there.
So, funny enough, I've got this little side it's public speaking or things like that. So I got invited in January to go to India and Sri Lanka through EO to do some public speaking and some workshops on corporate culture, happiness in the workplace, things like that. And I remember coming back, I was flying through Hong Kong, just changing flights, and all these people were wearing masks and people were checking the temperature of your head. And man, this is like, this COVID, what is this? This kind of weird thing. And I came back and I was explaining to people and nobody had heard of it, or it's barely on the news. And I was like, I think this is bad. And sure enough, just like everybody else, like March 17th or something like that. Like we had some really large customers. Kind of our claim to fame was like, like Microsoft head office or Industrial Light and Magic. Like our area is just full of like these game studios and things, and they just spend money like it's going out of style, right? And within like a day or two, almost all of them, some of them are 1,000 employees. We're selling like $20,000 a month to them, 1,000 employees, and they're calling up and saying, "Yeah, we've shut our offices." And like, if you've ever had that feeling of like, ice in your veins or like the blood drains out, like, yeah. I was just sitting there like, this isn't registering. This doesn't make any sense. What do you mean? Like, we deliver to you every day and you're not open. When are you going to open again? I remember the one big one. So when do you expect to be open? And they said, oh, we're thinking we'll revisit this in January. January? Like, I thought maybe a week or two. Like, they're like, yeah, we're just going to shut down and get people to work from home. Work from home? That's not going to work. Like, nobody wants to work from home. So overnight, our sales dropped by about 85%.
Oh, did you have contracts that you could enforce, like minimums or?
Well, the only real contracts we had, like I was saying, is like, say, on the coffee equipment. So great. You breach your contract. Hey, you're not buying enough coffee. They're like, okay, come get your machine. So actually from, March, April, May in there, we decided that to go pull those machines and bring them back. They were so brand new and they'd barely been used that we would rather have them back. So, kind of like a repossession in a way. We just went and took them all back and said, okay, well, when you guys are up and running, we'll come and reinstall them. But imagine our technicians, it takes like hours to get it up, water, plumbing, and, So now we had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, basically brand new, sitting back in our warehouse. And we're servicing that debt. I can't remember, it was $4,000, $5,000 a month just in servicing that debt. And we got all this equipment there and we're like, oh my God, we're screwed.
Oh my gosh. So I don't hesitate to ask, where does it go from there? I can laugh
about it now.
Getting better.
Just like everybody else, we just started cutting costs, cutting staff, and we bounced back a bit over that summer. Like everybody, on COVID, people thought it was kind of over. We bounced back about 50%. We actually tried to launch a grocery home delivery, built out a website, and things were looking really good. But it didn't matter. The supply chain was so messed up that you couldn't get product. So we just pulled the plug before we even launched it, and to stay with our core. So, we thought we could move into something else, but of course, all the grocery stores now were coming online and trying to do home delivery. So we were going to get killed anyways. So we just buckled down and had a fraction of our staff. And it was, you think, okay, in the fall, when kids go back to school, the things are going to bounce back, and no, and then now, Christmas and January. And so by January 2021, so now we've basically gone 9-10 months of just hanging on. We did a pretty good job actually at not bleeding too much cash because we just cut back.
How many staff did you have to let go?
Well, luckily in our area with our government, there was all these funding and things, so you don't really have to let anybody go. They just got paid by the government, so so it was kind of good.
Yeah, Calvin, for folks listening, Calvin's in Vancouver, and in Canada, we had some federal government programs which basically supported some of these workers that were in industries that were completely decimated by.
So yeah, I know you've got people all over the place that it might be interesting to share that. So what saved us was there was, of course, we're going to pay for this later, and I don't want to get all political, but the government paid 75% of our rent. $20,000 a month. $20,000 a month it cost us for our warehouse. So 75% of that was covered. And then anybody who we still had on staff at the height was 75%. So we can keep our full-time staff, and they paid 75% of the payroll. And then the people that didn't want or we couldn't have come back, they were just paid by the government to sit at home. So that definitely saved it. Without that, we'd be toast overnight. But so both of those programs really paid off, and there was some no interest programs and things. So we took advantage of that, like any entrepreneur would, of course. So
sure. So you're going to say January 2021. What happened?
Yeah, so 2021. Then my wife and I sat down too, and these programs were going to get pulled soon. At any time they were threatening to pull, and they said if they pull those programs, we're toast for sure. It is just shocking that these customers aren't coming back, and we're running out of pivots, right? So my wife and I sat down and thought, okay, well, we'll again pursue two paths. One is bankruptcy. So what does it look like to go bankrupt? I don't even know. And again, you reach out to your people and meet with some bankruptcy lawyers, and it's actually not that easy to go bankrupt. So, and it sounded kind of expensive. So, so I thought, okay, well, the only thing left to do is that we got to try and just sell this again. So luckily, some great advice that I had in hiring my M&A people is a couple clauses. One was that how did it work? Like basically, you can do a deal outside of the M&A company as long as it hasn't gotten, say, to a signed LOI, as an example. So we had retainers with them. They got lots of money out of us anyways on a monthly retainer, but because they had brought some people to the table, but there was no signed LOI or no deal that moved forward, then if we decided to call them and pursue something on our own, it was in the contract that we didn't need the M&A company.
Yeah, and every contract is a little bit different. So I'd encourage
all
everyone listening to this. Yeah, make sure you understand, if you do hire a mergers and acquisition professional, that you really understand what your obligations are to them. Usually there's going to be, if they introduce you to someone, you end up doing a deal with them for years into the future, that they would get commission. So it's just make sure that you read carefully your letter of agreement with your M&A professional, because each one is different, and you want to make sure you honor those. But in your case, you were able to go around.
Our M&A guys were just fantastic, and they understood the position we're in. And I just called them up and said, hey, look, I think, obviously I'm going to probably take a haircut on this. I just need, I'm kind of desperate. I need to do this. And there's just no meat on the bone if I got you involved again. And, basically I'm just going to try and pursue this. And although I didn't have any contractual obligation, I made sure that they were cool with it, and they helped me along. They gave me notes from when they were calling some of the people. And I just picked up the phone. And my first call was to the people that it was a Fortune 500 company. Luckily for me, I had some inside scoop that I had another guy that had an office coffee company about half my size. And we had bantered back and forth about doing a merger of some sort. And he got scooped up by Compass Canteen. Yeah, Compass Group. With a Fortune 500 company that's all over the world and doing office coffee and things. So he got bought because he was just a pure play office coffee. So he got bought in December, just prior. And so he kind of filled me in and said, this new CEO that came to Canada, he's got like a big war chest, and he spent it all for 2020. But because of COVID, this is like a new strategy for them, and he's going to get another big tranche coming at the beginning of the year. You just got to get your foot in the door. And then sure enough, giving him a call, and we had met with that team earlier, and they had said no because of the two divisions. So I knew my strategy going in was, when I called and said, hey, great news. We've broken the company into two, and you only need to buy the office coffee division. But you got to take all my assets, you got to take all my equipment, and I'll sell you my customer list, and we'll just do an asset sale, which of course is, music to a buyer's ears, right? And literally on that call, he was a pretty cool guy. He's like, so I don't know, what do you want for it? And I just threw out a number, and he was like, okay, so like, I'll get my team to call your lawyer. Thanks. I was like, okay. And so that was that was March, or beginning of March. And we had a signed money in the bank by May 17th.
Wow. Okay. So I want to just press pause here for a second because there's a lot to unpack there.
Gotcha. So
Yeah. So you call the CEO, the Canadian head of Compass Group. And so how did you arrive at a number? Let's start there. He asked you, what do you want for it? And you threw out a number.
Yeah.
Where
yeah, I took the old sim and kind of doctored it with new numbers and really made the argument. I mean, nobody knew that COVID was going to last that long, but basically just made the argument that this is kind of just a dip, and let's kind of park the abnormal 1 or 2 bad years that we're going to have, and it's going to kind of bounce back. And we've got legacy sales and legacy customers, so they're all going to come back. What's nice about the office coffee division too is having the equipment in an office is like planting your flag, right? So we're the incumbent, even though they're not buying right now, and they're sophisticated. He knew that. He knew he's out trying to buy up. What I've heard lately is they've bought over 30 companies in Canada. So luckily we were just on that list, but we were a little bit of a different animal. So coming up with a valuation, I just kind of took the old sim and kind of shot high, and they were happy with it. So I think he just had money to spend, and we kind of were close enough to fit the bill, and there wasn't a lot of negotiating. So
you took the old sim, which had numbers from the pre-pandemic numbers related to the coffee business,
yes,
revenue, gross margin, profitability, and so forth. And so, do you remember roughly what you would have been? Did you in the first go around in 2019? Did you place a value on the coffee business independently of the entire piece, or was it like did you get a sense of what you?
Yeah, the new sim then stripped out the office supplies, and just had this one division. So of course the numbers were lower and different. And now when you go to sell, pre-COVID, the sim looks like here's where we are today, but really we're trying to sell future growth. So we want you to pay for future growth. Try and pull that stunt. So the new sim was, okay, let's strip out the office supplies. And although our sales today are in the toilet, future sales will bounce back to the run rate that we had before. So we sold not necessarily future growth, but future, recapturing post-COVID.
And so when you said our revenue, when you're negotiating with Compass Group in 2021, your revenue would have been dramatically lower than 2019. Sinking. Yeah. It's still dropping at this point.
Well, it kind of bounced back. Right out of the gates, we dropped like 85% in sales, but then we bounced back, 50, 60%, started climbing up, but then it started plateauing a bit.
Yeah. So you're still 50% off your 2019.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I guess what I'm getting at is, did you get him to value the 2019 number or the 2021 number?
We took past performance and kind of forecast that forward and basically said, let's not look at the COVID numbers. Let's look at pre-numbers, strip out the office supplies.
And he bought that argument?
Dude, we were ridiculously fortunate that
oh man,
it was a very small deal in comparison to some of the other deals they were doing, and I think this is great for your listener. Like I've told the story to a few people and heard similar cases. Like, it never hurts to pick up the phone. You never know what the other side is doing or what they need. So for us, although it was great timing and we had we're kind of over a barrel. On the other side, it's like, we got to spend this money and we're just trying to acquire as many competitors as possible. And back to my what made me feel better was when we tried to do a roll-up and how hard it was to buy a company. And what I've heard since having this relationship with them, that of course we're the ugly duckling, right? They didn't want us. they had already asked every single other player in our territory, can I buy you? Can I buy you? And most of them said no. And of course, here we were, data vault ready, sim ready, I'm not going to say fairly sophisticated, but I knew how the game played. I had my team in place, and that's why we were able to get a deal done in like 90. We were easy. We were an easy deal. That a lot of times I think that the big players that come in and why they don't want to do anything less than 10 or 20 million is because it costs the same for them to do a $2 million deal in the due diligence and everything. So because the advice I was given is like really show them that you're ready to go.
What was the multiple of revenue you asked for in that conversation when he said, what do you want?
I think it was 0.7. I think it was about 0.75 still.
0.75 of your coffee or specific revenue.
Yeah, exactly. So I tried not to deviate off our earlier sim. I just basically stripped out that division and remarketed it back. But also now as a asset sale, not a share sale.
And to be clear, the revenue was adjusted, so to speak. It wasn't the actual revenue that was 50% down. It was like under normal circumstances, we should be about this. And
exactly. Here was our pre-run rate. Here's where we expect to be in the future. So you're buying future sales. Kind of let's just park this deviation. As it turned out later, finding out what was of value to them. Mm-hmm. Was one, they were on a mandate to get deals done. They had a war chest of money. They needed to get deals done. And now I found out that a lot of the other players in Vancouver had said no. So thank goodness for us. They were desperate for people. And our people were fantastic. Of course, high functioning corporate culture, which they were really struggling with. In assimilating, imagine, they had a 100,000 square foot warehouse and they're trying to plug in 10 companies and it was a shit show. So they really wanted our people because our people already, did huddles and everything, high functioning culture. So, and it's turned out well for them that way. And we had some marquee customers.
What was the impact of taking an asset sale for you? For folks listening, you can either sell the assets of your company or the shares. When you sell your shares, the buyer assumes your liabilities as well. You're effectively selling the entire company, including its ongoing liabilities. Whereas when you sell the assets, the acquirer is just buying literally the assets. That could be your customer list, your brand name, et cetera. Yeah. What was the implication for you personally to sell your assets versus your shares?
I'd say that early on, I didn't really, I was so fixated on a share sale. Everything I'd been told was, you got to do this and it's the only way to go. And obviously it wasn't an option for me. But what I found was, especially working with a really good accountant, I don't even understand how half this stuff works. I know that for the buyer, they just love asset sales. There's all these deductions and depreciation and all that great stuff, right? It's no brainer for them. But on the, personal finance side or accounting side, I don't understand how all of it works, but it's not as bad as I expected. Like, I expect these huge tax bills, but I don't know, you hire good people and somehow they're able to make sure they leverage all the right things. So, let me explain that I still own Lykki. I still own the company. I own all the shares. And so, there's a kind of a value there. But because of that, there's a lot of money that is still inside the company and of course you could take it out with dividends. That's a typical way, but there's other, at least in Canada, there's other ways that are very similar to, there's other ways that are very, very, very low taxes. So we've started executing on that.
Okay. And the tax is going to be different in each country. So we'll kind of move on from that, but talk to your accountant about the implications, the after-tax implications of selling your shares versus your assets. But if you still own Lykki, what is to stop you from setting up as a competitor tomorrow using the same website?
Yeah, no, there's non-competes and NDAs and things like that. What's actually funny with with Compass is it's only for 100-kilometer territory. So I could actually go reset up, but I don't want to be in that business.
What was your reaction to executing that sale?
Well, there's two different emotions, and again, great advice I got from people is, don't count your chickens till the eggs are hatched, whatever. That, deals fall apart all the time, or get ready for the other shoe to drop, right? They're going to come back and ask for something different. So I think that was good, and I made sure with my wife to say, this is not a done deal. This is only the first phone call of many to get it. When you get the check in the hand. So I really preface that with my wife for sure, right? Get the check in the hand. So it was, suppressed excitement, definitely.
Did the check come through in May as promised?
Yeah, that day it was surreal, right? Like, I didn't even go, where you go down to the lawyer and they kind of hand you the check and you look at it or walk out of there or something and high five. Like, that never happened. They just deposit it. And you just, you're clicking refresh, right? You're like, holy shit. Wow, that's pretty cool. But all the money was inside the company too. So you got to try and figure out how to get out of the company, but that's another story. But yeah, it was pretty cool on that.
And Calvin, to be clear, was it 100% cash upon the sale of the assets, or did you take a portion of your proceeds in an earnout?
Yeah, that's a great for your listeners that, so my buddy with his company, he chose a way higher multiple and he went really strong on the earnout side. Unfortunately, the taking 10 different office supply companies and rolling it into one. So it's turned into a bit of a shit show there. So he's really stressed about his earnout. I decided to go with a cash deal. I'm sure I could have negotiated probably higher with an earnout, but many times people would tell me, they said, treat an earnout like the gravy. Don't ever expect to get the earnout. If you do, great, but don't count on it as part of a deal. Try and, cash in hand is cash in hand.
Yeah, but in your case, it was 100% cash.
So it was cash, and there's a holdback. I've got some money coming, this spring or something. So they do a bit of a holdback that's tied into your reps and warranties and things, just so that things go smooth.
That's pretty common.
Yeah,
so 10% or something like that.
Yeah, actually it's lower. That's where your lawyer comes in too, right? So he ground that down. I think it was like 3% or something. It was pretty low. So
just a small portion.
Yeah, it was good.
So let's move to the office supplies. So lower margin.
So now my dilemma is, we looked at, well, can we run this business just on the office supplies, the ugly duckling that we haven't put any effort into for the last couple of years, and who's going to buy this? So I went back to the phones and myself and actually some other small independent office supply people. I ended up it's kind of like you're dating multiple people or something like that. So I had like 3 or 4 conversations on the go. And I really wanted to go with a small group, these 2 guys, and they were scrappy and
go with a small group. Are you referring to an M&A professional or a
no, people to buy it. Right. Okay. So I just called up, I called up a large competitor in my area, an independent large competitor. Unfortunately, they were having significant problems. They had just moved into a brand new big facility, blew their wad, and then COVID hit. So they said, happy to take you on, 100% earnout. Okay. But they had a big sales team. I thought, okay, worst case, right? I don't want to flush it. It's still worth, some good money. And there was another,
but it's a pretty small business at this point because it was only 1/3 of your revenue to begin with, and revenue is off 50%. So
we were probably down under 2 million in top line.
Okay.
Even lower during COVID, but so now I'm trying to sell like a $2 million business.
Yeah.
Less than that even. And so there was a small group, 2 guys, independent guys, and they'd done really well. So we were quite far along with them, but at the same time, somebody we had an LOI with prior, which was a large national office supply company, and it took them. I think they were interested from the get-go, but these big companies are just so big. Like, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks, and then say, hey, we talked with our executive team. We brought up in a meeting. Yeah, we're interested. Send us something, right? I mean, like everything is dragged out and dragged out. But I had to, I basically had to almost do the deals in parallel. So this is still March, and by the end of June, we were handing over the coffee business. So our business as a single source, as our website and everything, was going to look entirely different. So we needed to basically, make an announcement to our customers that if you want office supplies, go there, and you want coffee, go there. Like we tried to time it out to the day. So I had to do a deal pretty quick. Luckily enough that the large national office supply guys, they were transitioning into Western Canada and looking to build up some sales. So the timing, again, it couldn't have picked a better timing. That they were looking for. They had just hired 3 or 4 salespeople to go after the market in the West, and they could plug in our entire account base, and off they go.
And again, same questions. Multiple of revenue, deal structure, earnout. Like what?
That one was. I'd say it was kind of a 50-50 deal. I was, again, prepared. So 50% cash. I'd say it was like half revenue or something. It was a lot lower deal, leaner deal, because the margins there too.
50% of revenue.
50% of revenue, and then 50%, cash, and then 50% earnout. And yep. As it's turning out, so the earnout, I didn't want the earnout to start, last summer, because I hoped COVID would end. So the earnout actually started January for 1 year on a percentage of sales kind of idea and things, but they're struggling. I'm probably not going to get anything on the earnout. They're not going to hit their targets. So, but again, I was warned up front, like anytime you do an earnout deal, don't count on it. So it would have been nice. It would have been nice.
Were you able to make the same case to the office supply acquirer that you look at my pre-2020 numbers to estimate our revenue?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I had what's kind of, no, I can't say that. No, it's my LOI. I was gonna say who they kind of were and why they knew our sales. So they knew a lot about us and who, our run rate and things. So they're pretty sophisticated. They knew that it was okay numbers to work with,
because they assumed it was
again
going to come back.
Yeah, exactly. And they were expecting it to come back too.
Got it. Yeah, and to be clear for our listeners, we can't name the national office supply company, but
yeah, I'm in the middle of an earnout with them. Yeah,
they'll remain nameless.
But I mean, for your listeners, so I mean, it's hard to answer your questions because a lot of this was kind of a moving target. That, I mean, I didn't want to look desperate, but you're trying to just do a deal, which it was weird with the M&A people that I had first, because I was kind of behind the scenes and they were doing a lot of negotiating and things. So, which was, I don't know, it's 2 different ways to do it. But I mean, literally I was on the front lines just kind of hashing a deal out. I've heard some people just do it on a napkin over a lunch, right? So you can do a deal almost any way, I guess.
I asked this question at the very beginning of our conversation, and you said, I'll come back to that because I want to give you a bit more detail about the actual sale. But my question was, did you ever think about shutting down the office supply business to focus exclusively on the kitchen piece, the coffee and so forth? And I guess my actual question, now that we've heard the entire story, is if you had it to do over again, if you could rewind the clock, say 10 years and go back to 2010, would you have shut down the office supplies to focus on the coffee side?
Yeah, I don't think we would have, just because our brand recognition was all about single sourcing, so it was kind of our claim to fame. But in prepping something to sell, the multiples in the office coffee business were much greater. And then looking back on acquisitions and roll-ups and things, and although the office supply industry in the States is going through a massive roll-up itself right now, just knowing what business you're in and which one's probably more profitable. So, kind of to answer your question, I guess if I had the opportunity without a whole lot of damage to wind down the office supplies, then, focus on a core business with higher margins and better multiples of selling, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. We can't really answer, but it's fun to look back in hindsight to know, because each business had such different, strengths and weaknesses. Obviously,
Yeah,
I'm sure very challenging.
I think what I learned from it and moving forward with any other business is exactly what your title is, right? Built to sell. If you're going to build something ultimately you want to sell, then figure out who your buyer is, and then if you add a new product or service or line or even move into a new territory or something like that, is that enhancing or is that detracting?
Yeah. Well said. Hey, listen, let's do our lightning round of questions. This is where I would love to get your unvarnished, knee-jerk reaction to a couple of questions that we've got cooked up for you. You ready to go?
Okay, let's try this.
What is the most questionable stroke slimiest tactic an M&A acquisition acquirer tried to pull over on you or tried to use on you?
I don't know, slimy or something like that. Overall, what jumps to mind is just people purposefully dragging their feet, like using time to their advantage, knowing they can put the screws to you. So, there's lots of times that's happened, right?
Yeah. But biggest mistake you made in selling?
Biggest mistake, not foreseeing COVID. Well, that's kind of silly, but pursuing, once you're into it, I don't know if it was the right move or not to pull it off the table. We had a lot of momentum going, and all I needed was I getting greedy. Did I need to just restructure? All we had to do was do what I did, myself. Split the company up. Don't get so hung up on the share sale versus assets, and just get a deal done, because we had a lot of people at the table. So probably strike while the iron's hot.
What was the lowest emotional point for you in the selling process?
During the sales process, just I don't know. I just lived in a state of fear that if I couldn't get a deal done, just waiting for a no. To every time the phone would ring or you'd hear from, you're like, oh God, I'm one phone call away from. Because at that time with the COVID thing, it was basically bankruptcy or get these deals done.
Highest point during the selling process?
This is going to sound weird, but post-sale. So now we've transitioned the customers over pretty well. All the staff is gone. It's my kids. I have a 16-year-old and 18-year-old that kind of grew up through the business too. It's summertime. We're trying to wind down our warehouse, a big warehouse, right? And I was really looking forward to this, the moment in Cheers where they shut the lights off in the last episode, right? So I literally was in there. I sold everything right down to the broom. We had to take down the racking. I saw the forklifts. I was putting stuff on Craigslist. And it was kind of like this bootstrapping moment from the days of when I started. I was like the last guy standing, and you're like cleaning the carpets. And I loved it, And it was like, wow, this is like, because a lot of people said, well, it's going to be really emotional. And it wasn't. It was kind of a closure over the summer of just, taking the stickers off the door and winding everything down. And I had a really good time.
Trophy you bought yourself to commemorate the win?
Yeah, nothing. Well, it's nothing tangible. I can't remember the exact quote that I read. It's, there's power, there's money and things, but the most valuable thing is time. So like just sitting, I don't know, nobody needs me. No, that's what we said at the beginning of the call, right? You're like, how's your time? I'm like, my time's great. I got other projects I'm kind of working on, but the value of time, you can't buy time. It's really hard to buy time, I guess. Sleeping
Well
in.
said.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Speaking of what you're up to now, point people to where they can reach out to you I would be remiss in not asking you specifically about Club Need. Can you just give us a
Yeah.
quick description of that?
Yeah, super excited about that. So within Lykki, we kind of spun off this kind of charity component in Nicaragua, and what came out of that was this Club Need travel adventure company where people wanted to come down and build homes in Nicaragua. So we bring down, executives, and a lot of EO people have come. People bring their teenage kids to show them what real poverty is all about. So I'm kind of spooling that up to do more trips. So our signature trip is Nicaragua, but funny enough, we've also done some forum retreats for forums, and kind of our signature trip there is kind of like, have you seen The Amazing Race?
Yeah.
So one we've done several times called the Maui Challenge, and these forum groups, they just fly in and we tell them to bring a backpack, and we own them for 4 days. And they're just like, GPS coordinates, things like that. They're just running all over the island for 4 days and loving it. So I think we'll spin that up a bit more.
That's really cool. So the charity, the Club Need, the charity, how is that a charity? How does it raise money? What does it raise money for?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not actually raising money or a charity so much as we bring people down and show them. This is an area called 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙀, which is an open pit garbage dump. There's about 10,000 people that live around that in sheer poverty. So we bring down groups to build homes, but also if they want, they can sponsor some kids, send them to school. We're kind of more of a facilitator than actually collecting money. So as an example, one EO guy, he has a large construction company, and he says, I just love this idea of this 1-for-1 water thing. He does projects that are in the millions. He said, wouldn't it be great if in the pitch, he says, hey, this $8 million job that we're doing, we'll donate 8 million liters of safe clean drinking water. And then on the day that we hand over the building to you or something, we'll give you this plaque you can put on the wall. He said, but I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to facilitate that. And so that's where we've kind of gotten involved, and this construction company just sends us the money, and then we make sure that it is spent accordingly. But they don't get a tax receipt right now, so it's kind of unsophisticated. But anyways, we're helping to support this community.
And that's clubneed.org.
Yeah, clubneed.org. So running some trips down there.
Awesome. And if people want to reach out to you otherwise or on social, where would you point them towards?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Calvin Johnson. LinkedIn's a good place. So I kind of do a little bit of stuff on the side. I've got this website called Workplace Happiness, workplacehappiness.com. And so just pre-COVID, like I said, I just started doing some workshops and public speaking and things like that on happiness in the workplace. Kind of a fun gig on the side.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Calvin, we put all that in the show notes at builttosell.com. Thank you so much for doing this. It was great to hear your story. I'm glad it worked out in the end, not without a few twists and turns in the road.
Exactly. We are so unbelievably fortunate, I tell you. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were. I'm glad you shared the story.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Calvin Johnson. If you're wondering how to support the show, the best thing you can do is give us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. While you're there, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Today's show was produced by Haley Parkhill. Special thanks to 𝙁𝙊𝙐𝙇𝙊𝙀 for handling audio and video engineering. And thank you to the entire community of certified value builders who help us bring our message to you. I'll be back in your earbuds next week. Thanks for listening.